Alright, it's time for my rental car review. So this is a 2023 Kia Soul. It's got about 8,000 miles on it. I'm going to start off on the outside here, and honestly, I think it's a pretty good looking car from up front. That grille is kind of Audi vibes, which is fun. The rims are fine. I mean, it's really nothing special from outside. It's kind of cute. It's got some personality, I think. It's a good size, very parkable, excellent like city car. They've also got spots on the roof already for like roof rack type stuff, so that's nice to see. Coming inside, we've got, a full cloth interior. It's kind of a cheap interior, but overall it does what it needs to do, and it's pretty comfy. I like the triangle patterns that they've got kind of everywhere. See, maybe a little better over there. And so, you get inside, and kind of the first thing you notice is the way the dashboard wraps around. So the dashboard is sort of two pieces separated along this seam here. This front piece wraps really nicely around the windshield to the A-pillar and then right into the door, which it's kind of a cool feel. The way the sort of speaker and blower here stick out, it feels almost two-piece. Maybe it is, but something about it feels maybe just a little bit spaceshipy, so that's kind of fun. Now, again, it's sort of cheap but good. That kind of extends to the steering wheel. You get this like the classic like cheap Asian car, or just cheap car in general. Strange like fake leather texture on like a rubber steering wheel, plastic rubber steering wheel. This one has like a mold defect in the back here, right where my finger rests when I'm driving. So that's a little unfortunate, and honestly, it might be it might just be from a previous renter, like scratched it or something, but there's something a little sharp in the back here. Steering wheel's got plenty of physical controls, and you can see, it's got your standard cruise control buttons, volume controls, the whole 9 yards that you kind of expect on modern cars on the steering wheel. It's a nice small steering wheel. It feels responsive, and indeed I'll talk about the driving experience in a bit, but again, it's fine, right? It does what it needs to do. It's cheap but good. You got similar controls on the door, about what you'd expect, mirror controls and lock, unlock, that sort of thing. Infotainment's pretty standard now. Again, props to having actual physical controls. Certainly appreciate that. I can switch my modes and stuff by just hitting buttons. I have volume controls here, tuner control here. And then coming down to the HVAC, also full physical controls, which I do like. And this is, in fact, a physical blend door actuator. If I turn this, it doesn't quite come through on camera, I'm sure, but I can hear something rotating down here. Not so with the other knobs, but at least this blend door, maybe that came through. The blend door has a physical coupling, which I appreciate that as like an analog bitch, but However, this also begins my gripes with the interior. So this HVAC bezel surround here has these detents, or not detents, has these declinations, I guess, around the rim. And they don't match with any of the detents in the actual controls. So they're just there for like an aesthetic reason, but I kind of looked at them and I was like, well, why are those there? Are those like special markings, temperature ranges, something like that? It's not really clear why these are here. And then there's this detent into max AC as well. So, and that's fine stylistic choice, but then you put it right next to this guy, which has detents that match the bezel surround. And so there's a design disconnect here, I feel like, and it's just something that I noticed pretty much right off the rip. Also, this is a 2023. Why does it use a USB-A port? It's 2023. Phones haven't shipped with USB-A charging in ages. Basically everything that you get when you buy new, like any new phone is going to come with a C to C cable or C to Lightning or something like that. But C is your terminating end, and they're using USB-A. You do get two cigarette lighter ports, so it's not a huge deal. But when you're traveling and maybe you only have USB-C, that would have been nice if it was a USB-C. You also get a physical lever here, which is definitely good. No complaints here. I like physical couplings, no parking button or steppy thing or something like that, so that's fine. Again, generally the interior is fine. These work as intended on all sides. You've got, lights inside. I will say you've got plenty of passenger room back here. I mean, it's very, I'm on wide angle yet, but it is very spacious back here, kind of at the cost of rear cargo capacity. And speaking of rear cargo capacity, there is no cargo cover in the rear, which is a little bit disappointing. I was a little bit worried about my work backpack in the back there when I was leaving the car for like dinner and stuff, but ultimately fine. The other gripe that I have with the interior is also one of the things I like about it. So I like this nice flowing surround here, but look how high up this comes. So I'll try to hit where my shoulder's at here, but my shoulder's here. If I want to bool, arm out the window, I'm like cocked up here. My arm's actually raised. And of course I'm quite tall, I'm 6'2". And maybe there's some adjustment that I can do on the seat, but I'm in what I consider a comfortable driving position here. My hands are kind of the proper distance from the wheel. I have good pedal position and all that good stuff. Like, my driving position feels good, and yet I can't exactly let my arm dangle out the window. There's also no, I don't know, something about the car, like, it's very roomy inside. They've done a great job of making it feel bigger than it is. And that kind of comes up again as a gripe, actually, where I feel like I'm sitting really low. And again, there could be some seat adjustment that I can play with, but I like the position that I'm sitting in for driving. But I feel like I'm still sitting very low, and I can't really see over the hood to the front corner. There's some 5 to 6 inches of space between my head and the sort of ceiling, I guess. So there's definitely room for me to go up, but not being able to see the corners too well kind of makes me a little nervous driving the car in tighter conditions. I'm not quite sure where the boundaries of this vehicle are. Also, with my seating position, this is weirdly far away. So this is my arm fully extended from like normal driving, and I just reach it with like the tip of my fingers. Push forward to actually flip it down, and it's just kind of far away. Like, this feels far away, this feels far away, and yet again I'm seated in the right way for me to be seated to drive. And things are just sort of weirdly far away. It feels like. Again, I'm sure a lot of that comes to the way I am seated. There are other ways to be seated comfortably in a vehicle for driving. Maybe I've kind of missed it for myself here. That's kind of it for like bits and pieces inside. And I'll talk about the driving experience and one more piece of user experience as well. So in terms of driving experience, I don't really like these cars. I've driven one in Seattle before. It was like a 2017 or something, so a little bit different, but it felt about the same. My main complaint with these is how damn sensitive these pedals are. So when you're going along driving, you do gentle, slow pressure on the pedals to brake softly and accelerate softly and just generally drive smoothly. Or at least that's how I like to drive. These damn pedals are so sensitive. The brake feels wooden, or it really has no feel to it at all, because you press the brake fairly softly, I would say, and the car just jerks. Like, there's no build into the brakes. They're very jabby. Makes it feel kind of sporty, admittedly, but it's not very comfortable for city driving, which I would argue is what this car is designed to do, because it is a compact vehicle. Similarly, the throttle, the accelerator pedal, is it's mapped way too aggressively. You press it literally this much, and the car wants to jump off the line. And it can be very jarring. You know, it's really hard to let off the gas and slow down into traffic and then roll back onto the gas to keep a smooth flow of traffic going. I feel like it's either off or it's on, and when it's on, it's on. So that can be a little frustrating, and I've driven the car about 200 miles, and I'm still not quite used to it. It's also difficult coming off the line and that sort of thing as well. So overall, really just not great. And you know, it wants to feel a little bit sportier with the touchier pedals and stuff and the small steering wheel with the quick lock, but then it just tracks kind of weird. It tracks fairly flat for a kind of a boxy vehicle like this, but it never seems to quite track the way I want it to. It always feels like it wants to oversteer just a little bit when you would expect maybe understeer from a front-wheel drive vehicle like this. It's just kind of weird. It might be something you could get used to by driving it more. Frankly, I don't want to drive it more to get used to it. I don't really like this car. Like, it's fine, but the pedals themselves, the pedals are literally, like, it kills it for me. It's just too hard to drive smoothly in traffic in the city, which again, I think is what this car is for. Now, coupled with that sort of twitchiness is also the driver assist twitchiness. So kudos to Kia, you can turn these things like effectively completely off. I've been leaving them on sort of their normal setting, for the purpose of this basically. And the lane assist by default, you can set it more aggressively with this button on the steering wheel, but the lane assist is so like twitchy. Like, it doesn't adjust smoothly. You can feel the steering wheel like this as you're holding it. It kind of feels like riding a bicycle or motorcycle on like a graded highway or something. The way it feels like it wanders or walks a little bit, like in a groove almost. I'm not a big fan. And then I think the more aggressive one, it like jerks. It twists you pretty good. It's just too aggressive again. There's no nuance to the pedals, and there's no nuance to the drive assists. And then with that, oh damn, where's my keys? With that, the settings the settings for this thing are kind of odd. So if I scroll to my settings and want to look at driver assist or something, it's got Android Auto. If I scroll to my driver assistant settings while I'm parked, these longer settings scroll by. They do not do this while you're driving. And I'm sure that's a design choice to keep people from playing with these things while driving. And of course, I was playing with these things while driving. But even with that, there's some settings that don't show up until you're driving, I think. And they don't scroll by. So you have no idea what you're really looking at. And it's just kind of odd. But again, you get... It's... I don't think I like driver assistance in general with cars. It's kind of okay, but it's kind of just a crapshoot in general. I think I'm a better driver than a computer. In fact, this car would yell at me for departing the lane and tell me that I need a break while I was driving in the fog last night because the car couldn't see the road anymore and just assumed that I had left the road and was like, hey, you should take a break. But it's like, yo, it's really foggy right now. I don't know what you want from me. So I don't really like this bit of UI either. I will say the cluster's kind of cool. I like the digital segmented display type look and this like effect where it looks like you're looking down a tunnel. So when you start the car, or when you actually start driving, you only get about 2 of these rings. And then when you press the accelerator, the rings like go deeper. So it kind of gives you like, it's kind of a fun effect. And that turns red when you switch it to sport mode. And of course, sport mode just makes that twitchy pedal even twitchier. That's almost it. The only other thing that I want to mention is the audio is just weird. I've reset the audio to like balance in the center channels. Like it's all tuned about the way that I would generally do audio. A little bit boost on treble, a little bit of boost on bass. But like a normal audio is something like, I'm gonna pause it. A normal audio level is something like in the 50s with the windows closed while you're driving on the highway. And the road noise is not bad, it's just quiet through Android Auto, at least here. And then coupled with the sort of guidance, the navigation guidance voice being the quietest voice I've ever heard. It's kind of a weird audio setup in here. There may be settings to play with, I haven't looked. But for this particular vehicle and the condition that I got it from the rental place, the audio is just weird. 50 out of 75 max being your sort of comfortable audio level is strange. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I don't really like these cars. It's basically just due to the pedals. Everything else is sort of fine. It's an economy car. It's a compact car. And yeah, this was 16 minutes somehow. Sorry for the ramble. Kind of my 2 cents here. I even wrote talking points. I touched on all of them, didn't skip anything, and didn't really ramble too much. Yes, I did. All right, well, if you watched it, I don't know why you did that, but thank you. Goodbye.